Welcome to our show, Holding Ground. My name is Laura Richer. I'm a psychotherapist and the owner of Anchor Light Therapy Collective in Seattle, Washington. Each week, I'm joined by another therapist from the Anchor Light team to tackle important topics in mental health and psychotherapy. Our goal is to promote well-being by normalizing mental health challenges. We are here holding ground for you every Tuesday morning at 9:30 a.m. on KKNW. Good morning. Welcome to Holding Ground. My name is Laura Richer, and I'm a licensed psychotherapist and the founder of Anchor Light Therapy Collective in Seattle, Washington. And today we're here on 11:50 a.m. Talk Radio, bringing you a little bit of everything in the realm of mental health and psychotherapy. You can also check out more information about us anytime if you head on over to our website at anchorlighttherapy.com. So today I am back with my co-host, Michelle Mooney. Michelle is the clinical director at Anchor Light Therapy Collective in Seattle. Good morning, Michelle.
Morning, Laura, and to our listeners, and thanks for always tuning in. So we have a topic that I think a lot of people talk about or hear the word, but they're not quite exactly sure what it is. We can throw these things around like in pop culture and casual conversation without actually knowing all the identifiers or what goes into it. So that topic that we're going to focus on today is gaslighting. So what it is, why it's actually a form of emotional abuse, and then how to cope with that. So where should we start, Laura?
Oh, this is such a great topic. And of course, there are so many terms that get thrown around kind of in pop culture: narcissism, gaslighting, all kinds of things. So the thing that I find really interesting about gaslighting, and I think it's a great topic for us to address today, is that not only may you not recognize if somebody is gaslighting you, which what gaslighting means for anyone who has never heard this term before, which I doubt is very many people, is somebody causes you to question your own reality. So they tell you that something that is happening is not actually happening. And this can be really destabilizing for people because it causes them to doubt themselves or their own experience. But we kind of do this sometimes and we don't even realize we're doing it. So you could be gaslit by somebody, but you could also be gaslighting someone and not even realize it.
Right, exactly. So yeah, as we kind of break down what this looks like, listen to hear if you identify with any of these behaviors, and then what can be done with about it. So great point, Laura. And I think we think about gaslighting a lot within our intimate relationships, but we can gaslight in any context with anybody, right? So this can happen a lot at work, whether it's coworkers gaslighting you, maybe even your employer or employee gaslighting you, but also within the family context. So it's really can show up in really with anyone we communicate with, but
any type of relationship.
And, really what it comes down to, if we really boil down, the function of gaslighting is to control the other person in some sort of way. So it's a form of emotional abuse. The partner or the perpetrator, is motivated by gaining control, and it looks very slow and gradual. And so you don't meet somebody on your first date and they typically start gaslighting you then. It's a gradual thing. They kind of reel you in. There's the charm, there's the love, there's the fun experiences, and then over time these things can take place. So yes, Laura, whether you are if you feel like you're being gaslit, or if you're the one gaslighting, again, paying attention to what some of these behaviors are, notice like, oh yeah, I started to slowly do that, or maybe I'm doing that to Joe at work, or whatever. So right.
And really like subtle forms of gaslighting that people might not recognize is simply trying to soothe the situation. Sometimes when kids hurt themselves, their parent might say, oh, you're okay, it's okay, that didn't hurt. Well, that's a confusing message to a child when in fact maybe it does hurt, and you might be trying to soothe them, you might want them to stop crying, whatever's happening. So I think it's important to point out that sometimes we are doing these things and we're not intentionally trying to control people or be malicious, but it's just kind of woven into how we respond to maybe things that make us uncomfortable.
Okay. Yeah, that's a really good point. So that's a form of like not trying to manipulate with gaslighting, right? But like you're saying, is trying to help and soothe the situation. So,
but and the still is not beneficial to the person that you're doing it to. So while the intention is good, the impact is not.
Right, because then the poor kid, well, what do you mean? My leg is broken and I'm bleeding and need to go to the hospital. Like this does really hurt. And I see that a lot with injuries with kids, and how, they were gaslit by their parents, or that was minimized. And then they grow up and they have a hard time of taking care of their own physical and medical needs because they were taught as a kid, like, don't worry about it, or you're not worth me taking you to the doctor. So that's a long-term possible effect around invalidating children's pain and experiences in general. So
also, to your point, what you said is it can also be very it can be a form of emotional abuse, and it also can be manipulative. It can be an attempt to control somebody. So I mean, what do you think when it is a form of emotional abuse? What does that look like in a romantic relationship? What might some people experience they're being gaslit in their romantic relationships?
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot. And gaslighting is really a learned behavior. So if you grew up watching that in your family system, that's how you have your needs met, is by gaslighting, you'll adopt that. That can come out of certain personality disorders or personality disorder traits. So we think about narcissistic personality disorder, those folks with a full-blown personality disorder, not, again, we're talking about throwing around terms in pop culture, like, oh, look, he looks in the mirror all the time, he must be a narcissist. Well, no, there's a lot more that goes into having the actual personality disorder, but gaslighting is one of those things that can happen with those folks because they lack empathy. They are really only looking out for themselves. They have this sense of needing superiority. So if I put you down and question your reality, right, I'm the bigger person here. All right, so we are going to really dig into how this really can show up and what is going on in romantic relationships. And then again, also this can apply to other avenues. So the first thing, you already kind of talked about this, Laura, is questioning your memory. So they might, a gaslighter might attempt to change your reality, or negating or disqualifying certain things within the memory. They often use your insecurities and personality traits against you to kind of argue how you perceived that memory, a lot of things. So like, oh, and remember the time, you forgot to take the kids to school? That never happened. I don't know why you remember it that way. That's how it can kind of happen in this instance. But there's a lot more things that we can do, or folks can do to negate the other person's memories.
So, and so anything, and sometimes couples or people or romantic partners are gaslighting each other and not even realizing it, because when they've had a conflict, they have different memories of what they experienced in that conflict, and maybe it's because they were in a kind of an escalated fight or flight kind of state. So your partner might say to you, well, you said this during an argument. And you might say, no, I didn't. And so we see that a lot in couples therapy of people who have two different realities. So a response to that wouldn't be gaslighting could be an honest response, like, I don't remember saying that, or, that maybe that's what you heard. That wasn't what I was trying to say. But when you say to somebody that didn't happen and they believe that it did, it's very problematic.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And again, we can see this like in parenting child relationships. But yeah, absolutely right. Because within couples therapy and couples dynamics, we don't want to get gaslighting confused with, well, we just had two different perspectives of the situation, because that is definitely what happens anytime there's conflict. And what you're saying is, if that were the case, then we would, take each other's influence. We would talk about it, right? Oh, I don't remember it that way, but explain more. Not, oh, that never happened. So this kind of bleeds right into our next one, which is invalidating feelings or needs. So if I come home and I'm really upset about traffic, and I'm having a lot of anxiety or whatever might have happened in that day, and your partner is like, well, just calm down, or you shouldn't feel anxious, or I wouldn't feel anxious in that. No, you don't feel that way. So really negating or invalidating the feelings or needs of the other person.
Yeah. And so again, sometimes people will do that because they don't know how to soothe the situation. They don't know what to say. And so they'll say, well, don't be worried. Well, that doesn't help somebody if they are worried. And so another approach, if you find yourself doing that with your partner or anyone in your life, and it's ineffective, is to validate what they're saying and not try to minimize it. So a lot of times I think minimizing we're not necessarily trying to hurt someone. We're maybe trying to soothe the situation or maybe get out of it because it's uncomfortable. But that is gaslighting. And again, that can be very destructive in relationships.
And then, sometimes there is, though, the element of I'm trying to manipulate this, like it is a vindictive kind of spin on it versus a soothing. And, you make a lot of good points of these things can be adaptive or attempts at adaptive versus attempts at being harmful to the other person. So, okay, so this next one is stating they know what's best for you. So again, they can draw in your insecurities to kind of argue that, maybe you should be doing this for your health again instead, or maybe you should, work here and not there. No, you shouldn't like this kind of music, like my kind of music. So suggesting that they know what's better for you than what what you prefer and what you want to do.
Yeah. And that is manipulative. You don't know what kind of music you like. You don't have a lot of experience, or you shouldn't
have good taste. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of times if somebody's telling you that they're an expert or an authority over what you think, that is now we're going into the red zone. Now this is really destructive behavior.
Right. Yeah. Right. And, you can remind yourself in those instances, if you are the victim of this, is they often don't even know what's best for themselves. So a lot of all this gaslighting behavior, a lot of it is projecting. So they have low awareness and inability to regulate their own emotions or self-soothe. How the heck are they supposed to know how to do those things for you?
Right.
All right. What's the next one, Laura?
So this is a really, tough one, I think, is that someone is blaming you for their behavior. And we see this a lot in toxic or abusive relationships. I wouldn't have acted in this way, but you made me do it. I'm responding to something that you're doing. You're mad at me and that ruined my day. So you're not justified to have your feelings because you're hurting them. They blame you for the way that they behave. And what is problematic about that is that gives them an excuse. You have to always be responsible for someone else's bad behavior. And that causes people to question themselves. They might start to feel like they're walking on eggshells because they can't be responsible for another person's behavior. We can only be responsible for our own behavior. And while we might have feelings about other people's behavior, nobody really makes anyone do anything. You choose to do it or you don't. I mean, unless you have, a very extenuating circumstance. That is almost always true.
Yeah, exactly. And then, feeling guilty, feeling confused, why can't I regulate this person by, why can't I do things right so they're not mad? And it's anything. And, one of the ways this can show up is if you share with me, right, a need, for example, Michelle, I need more quality time with you. And I have a reaction now. I'm defensive. I don't want to have quality time with you. Why would you bring this up? Now you ruined the evening, so you did this, right? You made me angry. So by just bringing up something simple, or if we're talking about like, hey, can you help me out with the dishes? And that person gets angry. Well, now it's not about the dishes. It's about you brought this up, you ruined the night. So that can be really hard.
And that's a lot of times people who are not able to address issues and they're trying to avoid things will say, this is a bad time. And you are always trying to bring things up at the worst time, or you're hurting me. And that speaks to what's going on with them, not what you're doing necessarily. Of course, there can be times that are more appropriate than others to bring up certain topics. But if you have someone constantly telling you it's a bad time, you're upsetting them, you should have known to feel a certain way at a certain time. That is gaslighting.
Right. All right. So we kind of talked about this one because it feeds into a lot of these, but projecting their own securities onto you. And again, it's that desire of control. One way this can really show up is, so if I'm the gaslighter and I'm going behind my partner's back and I'm having a bunch of affairs, now that's my behavior. Now I'm insecure my partner's doing it, and then I'm going to blame them. Well, okay, you were on the phone 2 more minutes. You must have been flirting with that person, or you're late, getting home from work, you must have been out hanging out with somebody else or sleeping with somebody else, or assuming that every person that the victim is attracted to, so if that's the opposite sex, well, you can't have any relationships with people of the opposite sex because clearly you're cheating with them. So that's a way this would show up.
Yeah, so projecting and trying to control, definitely there's going to be elements of gaslighting in whatever way that shows up. Another thing is somebody who's gaslighting you might make you doubt yourself and want you to be isolated from others, telling you that people, no one likes you, or no one will love you as much as I do. Your family doesn't really care about you. You can't see it, but I'm the only one who cares. So that you start to question your relationships and you really doubt your sense of reality. All of gaslighting is trying to control by creating intense self-doubt.
Yeah. That's a perfect way of summing that up. And you start to notice, and this is a progressive one. So over time. So first of all, it's, I don't want your best friend coming to our wedding, and where they might, ruin it. And your mom and your dad, I can see toxic things. And over time, you don't have friends or family connections. And it's just that person wants you to be solely attached to them. So you're under their full control, essentially. All right, so this one. So this definitely shows up outside of gaslighting as well, but using the silent treatment. So after an argument, they might ignore, some sort of realization that their partner is in distress. So they'll just use the silent treatment, or they've hurt you. More so the gaslighter feels hurt, so then they hurt you back with using the silent treatment. And then this makes the person who's gaslit really anxious. It can prompt them to apologize or chase down the person, right? I was wrong, because they want that connection still with the gaslighter. We get hooked. But the silent treatment, if we let our partner know, like, hey, I need a break, let's return to this in 2 hours, that's one thing. That's a great way of getting your space. But if a lot of people do this just to hurt the other person, well, I'm not going to respond. That's my power move in this. So whether it's a gaslighter in general, we do that a lot. It shows up in couples' relationships, and it's so harmful. It's always about kind of controlling the situation.
Yes, and the really like gaslight, and this can be, like you said, it could be part of gaslighting or not, but the really gaslighting type behavior in this is that you don't know what has happened. You don't understand why you're getting the silent treatment. So the messaging is that you have done something so wrong, you must be punished. But that could cause you to question your own sense of reality because you don't know what it is.
Yeah. And realizing when you're being, either ghosted or someone uses the silent treatment on you, no response or no communication is communicating, right? It's passive aggressive communication that I'm upset. And I want you to be upset too. So no response is always a response. So that's an important thing to remember. So, all right, what do we got next, Laura?
So this one I think is really important to make sure that we consider is that, and this is where, knowledge is power, but sometimes we can weaponize knowledge. We don't need to go around diagnosing people that we have personal relationships with. So if you're telling somebody, and you're not a mental health professional, if you're telling somebody that they're reacting the way that they are because they had a bad childhood or because they're mentally ill, or you're just doing this, it has nothing to do with me or my behavior, you're just doing this because of something that is wrong with your identity, that is gaslighting. And so not everyone is a narcissist that you don't like. Not everyone has a personality disorder that you don't like. Not everyone is toxic just because you don't like it. They can be different things. So we don't want to weaponize people's identities. And, also it's very insulting for someone who genuinely is dealing with PTSD or any sort of mental health diagnosis, that it's being thrown around as an insult and a way to control people.
Yeah, it's a weapon. Well, that's because your dad didn't love you as a child. So, why would anyone, and really making and weaponizing that. Yeah. Or accusations of things outside of your character. So you're such a terrible person, right? You're a bad friend. I can't believe you would do X, Y, and Z. And it's like, oh, wait, don't you know me? I'm a good, sweet person. I'm not trying to manipulate or trick you. And you're accusing me of these things. So,
or maybe I have a very valid reason as to why I have negative feelings towards a certain person, and it has nothing to do with my childhood or any mental health diagnosis that I have.
Yeah, these things
how I
can,
feel.
right.
But
These things
especially-
can exist at the same time, right? I could have PTSD and still hate somebody for a legitimate reason that outside of that, that's just, yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
And so this is, and I do see this a lot in relationships, especially people who know that their partner had, childhood trauma or abuse or anything, that it might be easy for them to deflect and say, well, this is about you. And well, that could be true at times. That is gaslighting, because in that moment, the person's experience that they're sharing with you is that their concern is about your behavior. So telling them that it's about them and something that happened to them in the past is very toxic.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so this next one's pretty straightforward. Lying to maintain power, making the partner feeling anxious or powerless, and then that person can start to feel like they have a loss of control because the reality is no longer their reality if there's only lies going around. And this is all about questioning our reality. But how the heck are we supposed to even know where to land on reality if the person isn't even being honest with us? So
Yeah.
okay.
What are some signs, Michelle, so people can just kind of do a check-in? It's if maybe you're questioning, if somebody's listening to this is questioning that they're being gaslit, what are some things they might notice if that is in fact happening?
Yep. So there's a lot of things. So the first one is difficulty trusting your own decisions. Oh gosh, should I have pizza? Should I have sushi? Should I move here? Should I take that job? Right? You're just you're so overwhelmed by decision making because you've learned if I make a bad decision, well, I'm gonna get in trouble for it. Essentially, right? This person might be upset. So really getting frozen in decision making. Wondering if your emotions are appropriate. So
That's a big one.
So we can start to feel like, oh gosh, I shouldn't feel this way because I'm overreacting or I'm too sensitive, because again, that person has shown you over time that if you have emotions, they're probably going to second guess them or invalidate them. So yeah, feeling like you're too sensitive, feelings of helplessness, right? I can't do anything right. I can't help this person calm down or love me more. So you feel really helpless or out of control. Going all the way to the extent of believing that you're crazy or that there's something actually wrong with you. Feelings of brain fog or memory problems, isolating, you're isolated from family and friends. We touched on that one. Feeling confused, second guessing past events, overly apologizing because you feel guilty for the gaslighter's behavior, not bad, or, upset that they've treated you that way. You feel bad and guilty because you caused it, right? Again, they teach you over time, you're causing me to do these things.
Right.
What else is on the list, Laura?
So definitely feeling low self-esteem, depressed, feeling difficulty identifying your own thoughts and feelings and values. Just really, I think all of the theme that underlies all of this is really second guessing yourself all the time. So it can show up in many different ways, but the impact is you're going to be always questioning your own reality, even things like your own feelings.
Yeah. Always feeling like you're walking on eggshells. Again, it's like, gosh, if I walk this way, if I do that, it's always going to be wrong. Fearing how you would be able to move on without this person, like starting a new relationship, because they're teaching you over time, you're not lovable. I'm the only one who's going to love you this much, right? I'm the best partner for you. Feeling like you can't discuss problems in the relationship, again, because if I bring a problem to you and you explode, well, now look what you did. You made me explode. Not, oh yeah, maybe I should step up and start checking in on you a little bit more, buying you a birthday present. And then as we end today, the last one we have is, you'll start to experience most of these, or you will only experience most of these things with the gaslighter, but it can start to trickle over after time. Like if I can't trust my decision making, even if I'm out at work, you can still have that paralyzing effect. So it's primarily with the gaslighter, but you can start to notice these things branch out and seep out into other areas of your life.
Because of the lack of confidence and all of the self-doubt. So now that we've broken down gaslighting and what it looks like and how you will feel if you're experiencing, Michelle, what can people do if they are the victim of this type of behavior and it's really becoming, well, it's always problematic, but maybe it's, something that you really can't decipher what is reality at this point. What can you do about it?
So one thing you can do with the deciphering reality in particular in the memories is you can try to start practicing keeping a diary to track events, dates, times, conversations. Some people might go as far as using photos or voice recordings to keep a record of events. They can you start to compare the benefits of staying in the relationship and the benefits of ending the relationship to preserve your sense of worth. Is this better for me to leave behind so I feel better about myself? Do I deserve these things, or am I not willing to tolerate these things anymore? Seeking the validation you do deserve. So talk to a trusted support system, a therapist, have these people say like, yeah, this is bad, and no, you're doing a great job. So having that validation is key. What are a couple more things we could do, Laura?
Well, I think it's just really good to notice how you're feeling in a relationship. And even if you're confused about what is true and what isn't because somebody has been gaslighting you, if you feel bad, if you feel on eggshells all the time, if you feel like you can't trust your own instincts, listen to that. That's the roadmap right there, that something is off, that needs to be addressed. And I think also just reminding yourself, we are not responsible for other people's behavior. So if somebody is constantly saying that you are the source of their bad behavior, know that that is never true.
Right, exactly. Recognize that these are their insecurities. It's nothing to do with you. Like you said, increase your awareness around emotions, triggers, distress tolerance. And ultimately, if it turns out that you do need to leave, give yourself permission to end the relationship. Create a safety plan if you need one as you leave the relationship. And keep your if you have a safety plan or you signed a new lease or whatever it is, keep those hidden so you can go ahead and do that and stay safe. So, all right. So Laura, that brings us to the end of our episode for today.
Thank you, Michelle, for sharing so much great information on gaslighting and what it looks like. And if you enjoyed this episode of Holding Ground, you can come back and we'll be here next Monday morning at 9:30 a.m. here on KKNW to talk about something else in the realm of therapy and positive mental health. Or you can go over to our website at anchorlighttherapy.com and listen to our past episodes. So thanks for tuning in. Have a fantastic Tuesday.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Holding Ground. You can hear us here every Tuesday morning at 9:30 a.m. on KKNW. I'm Laura Richer at Anchor Light Therapy Collective.
Find us online at anchorlighttherapy.com.
And we'll see you next week.